I point out the fact that you don't have to be scared to sit on our work surfaces because they're not going to bend. And that edge, being real thin, isn't going to break off. Or stuff like that, because some people will actually look at that and say, I'm wondering about the durability of that real thin edge. So it's not directly saying it, wow, look at that, no, that's not going to work. It's actually just making a strength for your presentation and your product. And I've done this with, especially if I know a client's very interested, I've actually sat on the work surface right in there so they can see that it's not going to bow. I mean, this stuff is substantial. And then I've seen them go up over headers and actually sit on the surface and see it bow. So those types of things can be very impactful. So then after that, I talk about finish and sustainability. And those are my last 2 points, or headers, basically. And obviously, you all know our finish story, and I'll point out our certificates and all of our basically accomplishments. And the fact that we're 100% water-based. Now, I don't say, I don't talk about the solid piece of it unless they want to talk about durability. But I'll talk about UV curing and the energy savings that it actually has, and how we've been able to eliminate all these miles of ovens that we used to use with simple bank lights, and how energy efficient that is. And I'll talk about those types of things. And I'll talk about how we take it extremely seriously as a company. And I'll talk about the fact that without the water base, we wouldn't be able to achieve all these different levels of certification. And I think the big thing for me is when I'm talking about all this, I'm also talking about the fact that you don't have to worry as an end user to walk into this space a month later or 2 weeks later and worry about all that solvent smell and off-gassing that you would get typically when you do solvent-based finishing. And who does solvent-based finishing that we're up against? Fewer and fewer competitors, but Gunlock still does it. Yeah. Right?
National.
Yep. So whenever I'm up against them, I make sure we talk about this. Because customers don't want to smell that. And if you point it out, and I've talked about the fact that we used to do that. And we used to have complaints from customers when they walked in their spaces that it smelled bad. Right? So those are important things to differentiate us, especially if you're up against those types of competitors. So, and other thing this ties in with is that whole idea behind pigment and clarity. And I'll talk about our finish, being patented finish that we spent years and years to develop. It allows you to celebrate the beauty that you see here today, and is durable, and at the same time is very beautiful and sustainable. So those are the things that I'm talking about with my clients, and I'm talking about our goals not to have any PVC by 2012, right? I'm talking about the level certification, which I don't have here, that we have that also. And this is something that I think Cooper put this together.
Yeah.
But for those
That's
that
a
are
big
extremely interested in how this relates to LEED, I'll actually have this oftentimes up with me. And then it very succinctly, I think, points out the 3 areas that you can get credit for with LEED, and that we play under all 3 areas, right? The level certification, the FSC certification, which is another thing that I'll throw in, that they can, especially nowadays with core and also the veneer, that they can get that from us. And then also with the indoor air certification.
I thought David said that we should take that slide out. Is that not true? Nobody else heard that?
Where do you think you heard that? In
Why?
your sleep?
From David. Why? Because it wasn't accurate anymore. We can check.
I use it because I think
I
it's
do
a
too,
really
but I
good
mean,
pictorial representation
I thought
of
he
how
was
it
saying-
relates to LEED.
I know.
So that's kind of the elements that I use when I go through a product presentation. And again, how much time you have really makes a difference. I mean, sometimes you'll shorten this to just a quick fly-through. Sometimes you'll be able to do a full-blown presentation. The other thing I'll do too is I'll support it with pictures. If I'm not in the San Francisco showroom, I oftentimes spend a lot of time just doing a lot of things you guys do and getting application pictures that we all share to give them different ideas. Because a lot of times we don't know what they want when they walk in the showroom, unfortunately. Thoughts, ideas, things you do different?
That's good. I like the idea of
Props.
props, using more props.
Really good.
That helps.
One thing that you can also talk about, and I honestly don't know how our competitors stack up as far as their particle board goes, but I usually make reference to, we use M3 grade particle board, the top of the industry. For all I know, honestly, maybe OFS and everyone else uses the same, but I figure if I say it, I'm gonna make the assumption that we use the best, and if they don't bring it up, it's gonna sound like we use better than they use, so that's another thing I bring up.
Well, the other thing though is you gotta be careful when you gotta pick and choose in your presentation, because I've been in presentations where our work surfaces were sagging, and it was the last thing I was gonna bring up because you could see our work surfaces sagging. So
Right.
you have to be really careful, it can't be canned. I would stress more a little bit on the aesthetics, and I would point out, our frameless glass. And I would pull in on the technology modesty, I pull in that it's really driven by aesthetics. Yes, it's great function, but I usually try to climb under the desk
Yeah.
and say, you don't need this, however, if they're celebrating wood and they wanna clean it all up, they like the feel of a completely finished look.
Yeah, and a lot of them wouldn't even know, I did that same thing, they wouldn't even know it's a or pivoting modesty panel unless you get under there and show it to them. It's a finished knee well area, looks like a complete case good.
And you know what, honestly, if you don't bring it up, it's a disadvantage. You have to bring it up, because that's one of the reasons we won Sun, because, our competitors kept saying that we really weren't a wood case good manufacturer. I think the technology modesty panel makes us really look like we're crafting something, and we're looking at all the details.
Hey Sal, could we get, through the plant, an update on what everyone's doing with their finish? Because I know even among us who, a lot of people are experienced, we're saying, no, Gunlock's